Live. Welcome you all to Montessori Mic. I'm your host, Tatenda. Here today with me in the studio is all the way from Madagascar. Very, very excited to be in conversation with one of my dear, dear friend, Fiti. Fiti, welcome.
Hey, Tate, and hello to all the people that are listening to us. I'm so excited for this. So
I am
happy to
super
be with you.
excited. Me too. Very excited. I was fortunate to be in Madagascar last year this time. I spent 2 months where I got to meet Fiti, and we got to do Montessori. It was so good to just dream with you how Montessori is finding itself on the continent. Fiti, you have a very interesting journey, of how you got into Montessori, and we're going to talk about that. But first, who is Fiti? Tell us about yourself. Tell us about who is you.
So I'm Fiti, and if I get to talk about it now, that question is quite tricky. So I am. I think I am a very. I am a full-time mom. Yeah, because I have my child in my classroom, and I am also very passionate about education. I just am passionate about how education can bring peace and can change the world and can change Africa and can change Madagascar. And I am the director of Bricks Montessori School that just opened. It hasn't been a year now. So it is a tiny school here in the capital of Madagascar. And I am also, at the same time, I am the Montessori guide in the 3 to 6 classroom. Yeah, that's all about me, I think. There's so much to
That is
say, but now.
not, I know that is not all about you, but we will get into that as we talk. So I want to start with one of my favorite quote from what you shared last year at the African Montessori Conference in Zimbabwe. You were the keynote, and I remember that night so well. Like I was literally sitting at the edge of my chair because you were just sharing so much wisdom and so much good stuff that got us thinking about some of us who want to do Montessori in Africa or really try to understand how does Montessori exist within the continent. Now I'm going to read what you shared, and I want you to really help us understand this as you tell us about your journey from Paris to Madagascar. So you said in your keynote on the 11th of December last year, because at the end of the day, Montessori does not come to Africa to teach Africa how to educate. Montessori comes to Africa to remember why it exists. I mean, Fidi, I keep going back to this quote all the time.
Now I want to cry because it's like you're reading this and I'm like listening to it and hearing it again and it's like, yeah, this is it.
This is it. So tell us, like, how has this understanding, or rather, how did you come to this understanding as you trace your journey to Paris and then back from Paris to Madagascar? Tell us, how did you end up in Paris? And then how did you end up back home in Madagascar?
Actually, I was in Paris to finish my study, but I was doing Montessori in the south of France. So it's a small town called Nîmes. So it's the biggest town near Nîmes is Montpellier. So it's in the south of France where the sun sometimes shines
I
because in the
love
north
some.
it's not the same.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was in Paris for my study. Like when I came to France, I was in Paris, but then I moved to the south of France. And when we go back to this quote from my speech, yeah, it's like at the end of the day, Montessori doesn't come to Africa not to teach Africa how to teach, but to remember it, like why it exists, like why does Montessori exist? It's like I think because we often think of Africa like when we see pictures, when people talk about Africa, when we go on the internet, we just talk about poverty, about all these like children being muddy or children being like and I think the when we see the work of Montessori in a place like Africa, like I don't want to use this word, but I feel like undeserved, like we do not Like we do not deserve. We as African, yeah, there is this contrast with Europe,
Mm-hmm.
with America, and with all those big countries. We often think of Africa of not educated, of not
Mm-hmm.
smart. I think if you talk to like an African like us, like the young people and so on, they would always want to see like better, see the Americans as better, see French as as so much more. And when we bring Montessori to, when we see the work, when we really believe in Montessori, and when we really apply Montessori in a word like ours, in a word like ours here, when we see like how the potential of the child really bloom and flourish. Yeah, this is why this really shows like this is Montessori. I don't know if I explained it well, but it's so deep, and it's like it's like when we see the potential of the child unveiling here in Africa. Yeah, this is really what is Montessori, I think.
Yeah, I think I like what you're saying. I mean, as someone who's also been on the continent back home, and I've seen how when we bring Montessori to Africa and then when we interact with children's brilliance, right, we get to really understand Montessori, right? When we see it naturally existing within the experiences of
Mm-hmm.
children, how they learn in Africa. So, I mean, help us understand here. So you are in France, you're in Paris, right? What got you to make a decision that I'm going back to Madagascar? Someone would be like, "You crazy? You live in Paris to go back to Antananarivo?" I mean, I explain the same thing, right? Whenever I tell my friends and family that for me, I really wanted to go back to Zimbabwe to do this work there in Zimbabwe, and people just think that I'm crazy to want to leave, Denver, New York, Los Angeles to go back to Africa and do Montessori there. What made you understand that what you were thinking was the right decision for you to bring Montessori to Madagascar?
I
Because you
think,
literally shipped all your materials. I remember the story.
yeah,
You told me you put everything in a container and you took it to Africa.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. Until now, like I have some people like asking me that question, like, why did you why did you choose to come back to Madagascar when you were settled well in France? And that's true. I had a beautiful, yeah, and I still remember it. Like I really love France and everything about it. But like for me, every day when I came to my classroom, I remember that so well. Like every morning, because this is something I really care about. Is like we always need to arrive on time as teachers. So I always arrive like before my pupils come to the class. And I think every morning, and when I was preparing, when I was even at late at night, when I was thinking of those children, like preparing, and when I was preparing these, I always thought like, wow, if Malagasy children could get this kind of education, if Malagasy children could have the same quality of classroom, the same quality of materials, that would be so wow. And then would think of us Malagasy as people capable, as people like, because I think every children, like not only children in Madagascar, but I personally think like every children deserve the very best in education. Like adults that are caring, adults that are like really loving them, like really thinking of them when they set the classroom. Because I remember, like even now when I am teaching I am now giving like English course to young people from the University of Antananarivo. When I hear them talking about their teachers and so on, like they're saying me things like, for example, they'll be having class at 7:30, and teachers are canceling their class at 7. And I'm like, oh no, that's not how it should be, like,
Right.
and I think in my heart, I was like, if I do not come, if all the people like me that that got to know about Montessori, that got to know about how beautiful it is and how beautiful, what the impact of it on education on every children. If we don't go back home, who would bring it home? Who would bring it home? And I knew, because it was a real sacrifice for me to go back to Madagascar, because I knew that I was called to go back home to open a school here, but I brought my children with me because, they were born as French. They got the French nationality, what we are very thankful for. It's not that we also would forget about the fact that we are Malagasy, but we will never really be French. I am Malagasy, and even if I live in France, they will grow as Malagasy. They, originally they're Malagasy. They're the color of their skin. They're Malagasy. That's something like they cannot deny, even if they have the French paper. So for me, it was like, what kind of heritage am I leaving for my children? So for me, it was like, I have to go back home and to pave the path for them and to pave the path for the other children, because I am dreaming of a world of peace. I am dreaming of a Madagascar, like Madagascar people living in peace. And if I want my children, I don't want them to grow and think we just forgot about Madagascar. I think I had to give it a try, and now I'm here and they're very happy, and every day I'm really happy. Still someday I think I would be, it is already so much better in France and so on, but we are paving the path little by little.
Right. Yeah. You're sharing something that is very powerful here. Last week we had a conversation with Marco, who talked about Afrocentric Montessori. And one thing that he highlighted was this idea of remembering, that when we remember, we then have the power to really, reimagine education for the African child. And what I'm hearing from your story is you really sitting with this idea of heritage. Like, what does it mean to be, a Malagasy. I remember the same thing too when I got my citizenship here in the United States, that my mother told me that this is just a paper. You are still Zimbabwean. And even, up until today, I strongly feel very Zimbabwean in my being, right? And it is that, I think, remembrance that brings us back to our heritage, to then think about those of us who've been privileged to, be in Paris, to be in Denver, to then think about how do we come back and also care so much about the children in Africa. So it was that love that you had for the children and the peace, for your country, for the continent, that brought you back. So when you moved back, what was true when you came back, when you then set up Brick Montessori and you had children come through and families come through, that reminded you that Montessori was nothing new in Africa, that there was Montessori even before you even left to go to Paris, and even when you came back, that it already exists within, Antananarivo. I was there. I saw it when I came to your school, that everything breeds Montessori at your school, right? From the food preparation, from the language itself, from the culture itself. I fell in love with Antana. I still want to come back to Antana, so hopefully very soon I get to come back. But I want to hear more about what was the experience when you came back home to Antana, coming from Paris. I'm sure, life was so different, right? No more croissants in the morning, right? You were really having, carrots and rice and the beautiful Malagasy breakfast. So how did Montessori, locate itself in Madagascar when you came back?
Yeah, I think it was there. There were some things that were a lot easier, for example, we are having rice every day here in Malagasy culture. We have rice in the morning, at noon, and in the evening for lunch, for breakfast, for lunch, and for dinner. And what was beautiful here, it was how close we could see the rice fields, because we were surrounded, anywhere you go, for example, I live downtown in the capital of Antananarivo, but then if we just walk 500 meters, then we'd see the rice field. And I think like anywhere we go, like my children, when I work with my children, we would experience like seeing people like planting rice and picking it. And I think that is beautiful. And even the same with the farm, with how important the connection with nature is. And I think that is one thing that is really beautiful here, is like, people, like we are talking about nature, and in the nature you can see lots of animals, lots of different animals and different plants. We also had that in France, but was very different, because if we wanted to go, for example, like go to a farm, we had to go to like a farm. But here you can see like hen and pigs. Like I know that at my father, he has pigs. So if we go like on weekends, we just like see the pigs and all this, everything. And also like the children, children are really here. Children are not, I don't know if it's only in my family actually, but we can see that children are, like we co-sleep. We sleep with our children. So
Right.
it is this trust, I think, of the natural way of being of, the natural being of human. And I think all these things here is also natural, like breastfeeding, like following the rhythm, like anytime the child cries, you would just like take out your breast and breastfeed. This is very funny, because I truly believe that breastfeeding thing, for example, is very Montessori, because she said like we follow the rhythm. We don't ask questions, like we don't ask much. Science says, like I know, like in France we met like lots of doctors and like health professionals that say like we have to give the breast or the milk like every 3 hours and so on. But when you just follow the rhythm of the child, like regarding breastfeeding, for example, when the child cries, when he needs to be held, like you just hold your child and you do not think much about that. And I think, like there are these tiny things that we do every day that are very Montessori.
And that's very true that, in Madagascar, Montessori exists in its natural ways. I mean, the same is true, everywhere around the continent itself. So there's a way in which it responds to the everyday life, right? That it is a lifestyle. It is a way in which we understand how young children learn and how we come to be in the sameness of that environment, to learn. So connect this with us for Montessori. What is one of your favorite Montessori quote that you really love so much that you sort of get to experience every day in your classroom, at your school? I often think about Maria Montessori. For me, one of my favorite quote is, the true success of a teacher is to when we can say that the child is doing the work as if I don't exist. The idea that the independence is shown when we are not always helping them or guiding them in that learning, but they take ownership, right? What about for you? What is one of Maria Montessori quotes or like words that really guides you in the work that you do every day in Madagascar?
I have the quote like under my eye. So there is this quote of Maria Montessori, like, everyone talks about peace, but no one educates for peace. In this world, they educate for competition, and competition is the beginning of any war. When educating to cooperate and owe each other solidarity, that day we will be educating for peace. I think this quote is really the one, like, like really motivates me every day, because, I don't know if you live this, but we saw competition every day, and I think it's competition the problem in our world. If we talk about the war like going on in Russia and in Ukraine, why is there war? Because one just wanna be like the first, and one wanna be before another. I think in this world, and it's the same here in my country. It's like people do things, like not for them. Like they choose a job not for them, but because they want to be richer than another, or because they want to have more than another. And I think this is something I really do not want my children to live in. And I think this is a problem, because then we have adults that have money, but then that are not fully happy. And like, I know, like, for example, I don't want to talk about this, but this is the closest example I have. It's like I have my sister, and she's working in Mayotte, and she's the directors of a bank there. And she's like, every time we get to talk, she's like, Fiti, you're really blessed and lucky to wake up every morning and to be excited to work, And I think, like, how can you have so much and have like this less, like this is so sad. And I know that every time I call my dad, it's the same. I can say that he's one of those privileged Malagasy people, like having cars, having houses, and like you can afford anything that you want. But then every time you call him, like, hi, hey dad, how are you? And he's like, oh, I am, like there is, like he's not happy. And I think this is really sad. And when I get to explain, like when I get parents visiting my school, and when I explain to them like how it works and how Montessori work and everything, like how we work for peace, like in every way we do, like for example, we do not, because this is always a question that they ask, is like, how do you evaluate the children if you do not grade them? And I'm like, you know what? If there is a first one, then there is the last one. And that child and the children in the classroom, when you start like, because here in the Malagasy system, we do not even grade like A+ and B+ and D and F and so on. There is like 1, 2, like if you have like 24 children in the classroom, so there will be the first and there will be the 24th. So if you grade the children in the classroom, then if the children hears like for example, Nicolas is the first and Matthias is the 5th and another child is the 10th, that child will, even if you don't say it, like he would feel it, like he is behind. And like there is already that the child hears. And then at home, the parents will also make comments about that, like, you could have done better, you could have done this, you could have, like, if you do not watch TV this much, you would be better like X and like X and like Y, like all this comparison, when we just should let the children like work for them just because they love reading, that they should just be left to read and no one like making comments and all these things, And I think this is a really beautiful way how we can demonstrate like how Montessori pedagogy like really contributes in peace. And there is also this fact also that I like also explaining the parents, like children, for example, in my class, they call me Fiti. They do not call me like here. They call like in some school they would say like Madame. They would use Madame Fiti, or they would say like big sister. They say Zuki. That means big sister. But in my school, this is something that was really like like very opposite of our culture here. And people are always like, wow, children are calling you with your name. And I'm like, yeah, I think this is very important because, like by our height, we are already taller than the children. So they know that we are bigger already with the tone of our voice. If they just observe us, they know that we are bigger. And if we have to add another like prefix like Madame, and then I would be big. It will make me like farther to them. So what we want is like children to feel like, and I personally do not think like they have to call me to add Madame to my name to feel that they respect me. Like we don't need that. It's by the way we talk. It's by the way we speak to them. It's by the way like we interact with one another. I think respect is not about adding like adding Madame or Sir to a name. And I always use this example. And like at home, we want it or not, like I know that there are parents that speak to their children like, I am the one who decide. I am the adults here. And I am the chef of this family. You know, like they hear that. I think they hear that a lot at home. And this is like, children always hear that, like, they are smaller and they just can't wait to be at that position of being the bigger one, to, you know, like to also have this authority. So then when they become a policeman, when they become director, when they become the president of the country, then they would just, like, you know, like smash the others just because they have this opportunity. And I think they, in their life, in their everyday life, children are just, they just can't wait to be at the position of being the bigger, at being, you know, like the one, like with the strength and being strong and being with all this authority. And I think this is already, you know, like something we do in Montessori that is really working for education in peace. Because I know that here in my, you know, like here in my country, you would meet, you know, like everybody wants to be a policeman because they just can't wait, you know, to be the one like punishing the others, and they just can't wait to be the minister, like, you know, like just not to go through the traffic, just, you know, like to be the one like with the siren, like pam pam, and just, you know, like that. And I think this is something we do in Montessori that I think is very beautiful. And that is really contributing in change in our country.
Beautiful, beautiful. I think that quote around peace, that everybody talks about peace, but nobody really wants to educate for peace, really speaks so much to the work that you're doing, right? Like you are educating for peace, for, you know, peace is part of the work that you do. And if anything, it's what you're hoping will be the outcome. Because, you know, in most education, it is about grades, right? People are trying to get to the next level, to be a policeman, to be a minister, and to have power and control. And yet we don't have people who are happy, who can wake up and say, I really love what I'm doing. I'm excited to meet the kids today, you know, to discover the world and learning, you know, next to each other. And I think that's the beautiful part of this work. I know that's true for me too, that I just enjoy waking up to the idea that I get to work with young people, and we get to work together as we learn and understand everything in the universe, which I think is just so beautiful, right? And unfortunately, we have, you know, some schools, some ways of learning that really seek to take away that joy of learning. And it's still this mindset of, you know, working towards being someone who can go to work and be in a factory and being told what to do and do exactly that, and then exploring your potentials, right? So I know that you just don't do Montessori in Madagascar. And I want to really bring this conversation too, because I know that your work in Montessori has also influenced, if not, maybe is also part of who you are in life in general. You're someone who's passionate about, you know, your people, right? You do work, you just told me that you work with university students. I know you do work around literacy in Madagascar, trying to make sure that, you know, children can read, they have books. You do a lot of things outside just being the head of Break Montessori, and you have 2 kids, you're a full-time mother. I'm like, how does she do it? But somehow you do it, right? So tell us the other work that you do as you try to make it a better world in Madagascar for the Malagasy children.
Yeah. So, you know, this is something like I really got to understood whenever my heart was, you know, like to bring Montessori, like I am still praying about this, you know, like to have the opportunity, like to change the Malagasy education system. So when I opened Brick's Montessori school, like, it is a school that not everybody can afford because the materials, because of teacher training, because of the rent of the houses and so on. So I really, I'm then using, you know, like my extra time to take every opportunity, like, you know, like to spread a bit of Montessori in every way I can. And so I got to work with an NGO called Teach for Madagascar, who was really doing beautiful works here, like about spreading the love of books and books around Madagascar. So thanks for my work with Teach for Madagascar, I had the opportunity, like, you know, like to design didactic materials for public schools for our volunteers to go there. So it was Montessori inspired. Like we made these golden beads out of woods, and wow, that was just amazing. I felt so like, yes, the children in the public Montessori school, in the public schools here, are getting the same materials that I had when I was in France, because we made this canvas, like this poster on the wall about this alphabet, like the sounds of the alphabet, and I was so proud to do it. It was such a great opportunity. And this is one of the things I've done with Teach for Madagascar. I've also been monitoring like the ambassadors and training them on how to read books to children, like how to animate like reading session, and how to make it lively, how to make it, because in our country access to books is like very low, so it is, and books is not really part of our culture. Stories, yes, like oral stories, like telling stories, yes, but books is really inaccessible here. So this is why the works of Teach Madagascar is really important here. Like we used to share, to bring like freely books in public schools, like in remote areas. So we do not only like give books, we train ambassadors that would like have reading session with children every week. So I got to train those ambassadors on reading techniques and how to make it, how to make it fun, and how to make children like have a real interaction with books, and how like books do not bring story, but you can also use books to learn math, science, geography, and all that books can bring. I also now I'm also teaching English to young from the public university of Antananarivo, because I got to spend some time with those young people, and it was so sad, like how like how they how much opportunities they would be able to get if they speak English. And I also see that I do not only teach English, but through English I can teach them, like they can have this in brackets like this Montessori time, where like children, like teachers respecting them, like teachers like really following the rhythm, and like doing what do they need at the moment, like, and knowing them individually. And like having this time where learning is fun, and learning is actually cool, and like having this time like where they do not feel as they're dumb, but they're like they have potential, and I'm just there to help them, like to facilitate this learning. And I think for them to have this experience, like, because I believe that you cannot learn to respect the time if you have never experienced people respecting time. And this is something that I really want these young people experiencing, like, like teachers that are respecting them, because I want them to grow as people respecting the others, and because they are the adults, and they are the people that are voting. These are very important people. So just grab this opportunity, like to have this opportunity, and also because I know that in their lives, if they've gone to traditional school, you can hear it when they speak, that they do not have like confidence. So, like, I think it is so sad when you see like they have PhD, they have their master, but they dare not speak in front of people just because they never feel enough, or they never feel like they can do it. So this is something I do with teaching English. Like recently, I also got hired to work with Beach Education from Pakistan. We are now like bringing learning French for the teachers, like to reinforce their French learning through a WhatsApp bot. So I got to work in that project lately. So I got to meet like teachers from the public primary school here, and to teach them like digital literacy, because it is important, like those teachers in the public schools here, they they are teachers, they are very important people, and they teach children to read, but some of them are not capable of reading, and they are using French as the language they are using for teaching, but they do not speak it well enough, and then but it is such a very good opportunity, to get to meet those people, even if I just meet them for a few minutes, to make them feel like you are important, you are very important, and you are doing such an important work for the future of our country. So that's what I'm doing right now.
Oh gosh, Fitty, I dare not ask how much time of sleep do you have every night, but I know you're doing good work, so that what matters, right? And thank you for the work that you're doing in Madagascar. I mean, I see it, and I know for sure, having been to Madagascar, seeing you, doing your magic, working, it's just so inspirational to have someone with such energy, not just energy, but love for how education could be the answer to transforming lives for young people in Madagascar. And thank you for that work that you're doing, honestly. And also for taking the opportunity to really infuse Montessori experiences, even at a college level. Because I mean, some of us, have gone through college, not even knowing how to be respected as a student, as a learner, and how to also on your learning. So I think what you're also helping with will help them when they then go into the world, into different positions in workspaces, to embody the same elements of how to respect each other, how to listen, how to be listened to, and how to learn and be and stay curious, right? Which are all like essence of the Montessori philosophy. I know I wish we had all the time in the world, but it's good to always come and sit and have a conversation with you. But before we leave, what message do you have for people on the continent of Africa, really, who starting to interact with Montessori? What are some of the things that you would want them to really understand about the Montessori method itself? And for those who are listening, maybe not from the continent, to also really understand to your quote, right? Like when Montessori comes to Africa, it's not coming to educate, but it's coming to understand why it exists. So can you really speak to that as you wish as well on the continent,
Yeah. I think if there is something I really wanted to say is that, we often see Montessori as inaccessible because we think that it's about the material. Oftentimes we think that it's about the materials, and we know that the materials is really, really super expensive. So what I think is very important for us to know about Montessori is that there is this heart of Montessori, and we do not speak much about this, this is funny, we really talk about trainings, we talk about the materials, but we do not talk about her heart. She was really loving the poor ones. She was really loving the underprivileged ones. And I think if there is something that we should remember about Montessori is that heart of really loving the children. She respected the ones that nobody do respect, children. We often speak of children as incapable, as let me help you with your shoes. You cannot do it. You're too small for that. Every time it's about, in our everyday lives, it's that. But I think if we step back a bit and think of the child or of the others, as someone that has all the potential just waiting for that to unfold, then we would see that, the world full of love and the world full of peace. And I think that is so important for us to remember. You also do not have to be, how to say that, to be underlined like Montessori from AMI or from so on. You can, if that is what you have, if your classroom is what you have, if your home is what you have, I believe that if you have a heart that is really loving and really caring and really willing for the autonomy of the child to unfold, then you can do it. It's just about you. It's about us, I think.
Well, thank you so much, Firi. And again, really, thank you for being with us today and sharing your knowledge, your experience, and some of the work that you're doing on the continent. we always say here on the channel that, don't forget to follow the child as you follow this channel. So thank you for being here with us.
Thank you, Tate, for inviting me. I am humbled and honored to be with you. And yeah, you always talk about me
Glad to
like
see you very
wisdom.
soon.
So I don't think I am this very wise.
No, you are very wise. Oh gosh, my goodness me, you are so wise. And I'm excited that I get to be with you and do some of this amazing work in August in Zimbabwe. So I'm so excited to see you again at the
Yes.
conference and to learn from you to what you have you have prepared for us this year. So I'm really, really excited that I get to see you in a few months.
Yeah. So thank you, Tate. And yeah, and see you very soon.
Yeah, very soon indeed.